You've seen it before. The look in her eyes when he raises his voice. Not fear, not defiance. Something older, like a dog returning to the scent of a long dead master, like a child touching the bruise just to feel it bloom again. You think you're the exception? That if you are kind, if you are safe, if you are gentle, she will choose you. But she doesn't. She watches you from a distance like a painting behind glass, while she runs barefoot through the fire that burned her once already. There's something about the man who doesn't ask, who doesn't wait, who disappears and reappears like a fever, uninvited, unwanted, unforgettable. You've tried to understand, but maybe this was never meant to be understood. Maybe it was meant to be repeated, because underneath her laughter, beneath the soft tilt of her neck, behind the silence after she says she's fine, there is a wound that smiles when it's reopened. And you were too clean, too careful, too late. What you call love may be the mind's cruelest disguise, a wound seeking to reopen itself in the arms that once inflicted it. You think you are meeting her for the first time, but she has already recognized you, not for who you are, but for the scent beneath your skin, a faint memory of someone else who hurt her just enough to make her feel alive. You wear a different face, a softer voice, a gentler presence. But she does not want that. She wants the ache that never ended. The finger traced around an old bruise. She looks at you like a mirror that won't break, and that frustrates her more than violence ever could. You mistake her calm for trust. But she is not calm. She is watching, waiting, listening for the echo of footsteps she once feared. When you are kind, she feels nothing. When you offer safety, she recoils. You don't realize it, but your tenderness is the very thing that makes her restless. It is not your fault. It is not hers. It is older than either of you, a script etched into the earliest chambers of the psyche, where pleasure and pain first learned to kiss. You sit beside her and speak carefully. You listen. You empathize. She smiles with her mouth, but her body turns away. And then one night, the man who never listened shows up, uninvited. She does not want him. She does not trust him. But she opens the door. And afterward, when she trembles in silence, when you try to hold her and she pulls away, she will say she doesn't know why, but her body does. Her wound does. The wound is not passive. It hunts, it longs, it remembers, and it is not loyal to healing. It is loyal to the pattern. The repetition compulsion that ancient ghost Freud saw hiding behind the curtains of choice. She is not seeking pleasure. She is not even seeking love. She is seeking the reappearance of pain under her own control, the chance to reenact what once made her powerless, now with the illusion of agency. She does not return to the man because he makes her happy. She returns because the ache feels familiar, and familiarity is the most seductive lie of all. When she was small, perhaps someone once raised their voice and then made her feel safe again. Perhaps love always came with a flinch. Perhaps silence meant abandonment, and chaos meant attention. You do not need to know her story to see its symptoms. The heart does not respond to words, it responds to patterns. If pain was the only thing that made her visible, then pain is where she returns to be seen. You think, if I love her gently, she will finally be free. But she was not built to feel safe in gentleness. It confuses her, makes her feel invisible. She doesn't know how to react to your kindness, so she questions your strength. Not because she wants to be dominated, but because she does not trust softness unless it's followed by withdrawal. You give without taking. That makes you suspicious. She cannot mirror herself in you, because you do not trigger the wound. You only stand beside it. You wait for her to recognize your value, to see that you are different. But the wound is louder. It speaks through absence, through delayed replies, through the way her body leans forward when the cruel ones walk away. She does not know it is happening. You do not know you are waiting. But both of you are dancing around the same emptiness. She aches to feel. You ache to be chosen. And both of you are ruled by something unconscious, ancient, and merciless. Freud did not believe we are free. He believed we are puppets of our own unprocessed desires, that we repeat what we do not resolve, that we return not to pleasure, but to the scene of the crime, again and again, not to escape it, but to rewrite it. And so she returns to the man who breaks her, hoping that this time the script will end differently, but it never does, because the script is not broken. It is whole, and she is inside it. She touches the scar not because it hurts, but because it reminds her she is still there. The memory of pain becomes her compass. You offer her a blank map. She doesn't know how to read it. She would rather follow the blood trail back to where it all began. You try to take her forward, but she is facing backward. She smiles at you, but her feet are pointed toward the door. You ask yourself if love is enough. But love was never the question. The real question is, what does she call love? What did she learn to crave when she was too young to refuse? What made her feel worthy? Was it the chase, the withdrawal, the contradiction? If the wound became the altar, then of course she worships at its feet. Not because she enjoys the pain, but because she believes that pain is where love lives. You watch her disappear into the same pattern. You try to stay calm. You tell yourself she is confused. But inside you, another voice starts to whisper, maybe I was never what she wanted. Maybe goodness has no magnetism. Maybe the pain gives her something you never could proof. Proof that she is real. Proof that she matters. Proof that someone was willing to harm her just to possess her. And then, the worst thought, maybe she only feels love when she is hurt. It's a cruel equation, but it is not a moral one. It is psychological. It is the unconscious grinding against the cage of reason. It is the child screaming through the adult mouth. It is the soft body longing for the same old bruise because it doesn't know how to want anything else. And no amount of kindness can make her want safety if her nervous system associates safety with boredom. You can beg, you can wait, you can hurt yourself trying to prove that not all men are the same. But she's not looking for difference. She's looking for rhythm, for the beat that matches her earliest song of abandonment. She won't say this. She doesn't know, but she will feel it. Her body will know before she does. And by the time you realize she's gone, she will have already returned to the place that once destroyed her, hoping, somehow, this time, it will save her. And you, kind one, will remain untouched. Not because you are unworthy, but because you are unrecognizable to her wound. Because the pain she longs for has your face only colder, rougher, farther away. Because you remind her of a world she does not believe in, and the mind resists what it cannot explain. This is not your failure. This is not her betrayal. This is the machinery of repetition playing itself out beneath your skin. You think you are in love, but perhaps you are simply playing opposite roles in a tragedy neither of you wrote. A tragedy where the hero is the one who wounds, and the savior is the one she cannot feel. Because when the wound whispers, even the sweetest voice sounds like silence, and silence feels like death. She smiles not because she trusts, but because she needs a face to reflect her fear without revealing it. She stands before you like a mirror, polished, smiling, clear, but you don't see that it's made of glass from a shattered past. You speak gently, your eyes steady, your words slow and warm. She reflects them all, but none of it reaches her. Because she is not looking to be known. She is looking to be confirmed. Not the woman she could become, but the one she secretly believes she is. The broken one. The one undeserving. The one only worthy of love if it comes with punishment. And so, when she smiles at you, it is not an invitation. It is a mask she holds so tightly it's begun to fuse with her skin. You think she's calm, but underneath, the questions never stop clawing. What will you do when she disappears? What will you do when she cries and won't say why? What will you do when her silence becomes a scream you're not allowed to hear? Because that's what she's testing, not your presence, your response, the proof of whether you're like the others, not in the ways you act, but in the ways you break. And if you don't break, if you hold steady, if you refuse to wound her, she'll grow uneasy, because now the mirror has nothing to reflect but stillness. And stillness, for someone shaped by chaos, is unbearable. She craves the lie because the lie feels safe, and the lie is this: he hurt me because I mattered. You offer her something truer. You matter without being hurt, but truth doesn't pierce as deeply as memory. And so she nods, she listens, but she does not absorb. Instead, she continues to search for the familiar edge, the cold moment before cruelty, the silence that precedes withdrawal. She needs to feel it again, just once, to know she's still inside the story she was born into, a story where love is dangerous, and danger means love. You think she is choosing between two men, but she is choosing between two mirrors, one that flatters, one that exposes, one that offers comfort, one that confirms the terror she cannot name. The second one, the darker one, is the one she returns to, not because it makes her feel good, but because it makes her feel real. In a world of illusions, reality is pain, reality is cold shoulders, reality is being punished and then forgiven. You offer no punishment, you offer no test. She doesn't know what to do with that. And so she invents a flaw in you just to escape the discomfort of being seen without suffering. You watch her pull away slowly. She no longer laughs as freely. She no longer tells you the small things. The tone changes, not out of anger, but out of quiet disappointment. You were supposed to fail her. You were supposed to become like the others. And when you didn't, you forced her to confront a possibility more terrifying than abuse, the possibility that the love she thinks she wants is not love at all. But she's not ready to see that. So she leaves you in pieces, not because she hates you, but because you did not confirm the lie she still clings to. You see, mirrors are not innocent. They respond, they shape, and she needs a mirror that doesn't challenge her reflection. If you hold up one that says you are whole, you are enough, you are safe, she cannot recognize herself. She sees only distortion, because wholeness is not her shape. Her shape is fragmented, wounded, familiar. A little girl in a grown woman's skin, still trying to survive a house that never felt like home. You think you're losing her, but you never had her. You only had the version of her that appears in peace. The real one lives in the fire. And if you won't burn her, she'll walk straight into the arms of someone who will. That is not madness. That is symmetry. That is the unconscious doing what it knows best, recreating what it cannot resolve. And then comes the twist. She will return to you, not when she's healed, but when she's broken again. When the mirror that lied to her finally cracks. When the man who gave her the familiar pain finally retreats too far, too fast, too cold, and she will come back to you for softness, but not to stay, to recover, to breathe, to be seen again just long enough to remember what being untouched feels like. And then she will leave again, Because the softness is not a home. It is only a rest stop. The true home, in her mind, is the place where love hurts. You will feel used, and you are. But not for pleasure, for contrast, for safety, for the lie to make sense again. She must remind herself that someone like you exists, someone who didn't hurt her, didn't chase her, didn't leave a scar. Because that makes the pain she chooses feel even more earned. See, she tells herself, I had a choice. I chose the pain. I am in control. This is the cruelest loop of all. She cannot escape the pattern because escaping it would mean she was wrong. That love doesn't have to be earned through suffering. That she could have chosen peace all along. But peace feels like failure, like surrender, like not trying hard enough to be chosen by the one who hurts her. Because deep down, she believes love is proven by survival and you never made her fight. And yet, you stay. You still believe that if you just wait long enough, hold her long enough, prove yourself enough, she will see you, but she already does. And that is the tragedy. She sees you clearly, and because of that, she knows she cannot love you not yet, because to love you would mean loving herself. And that mirror is the one she's never dared to face. Do you know how many men like you she's left behind? Not because they failed her, but because they didn't. You are the one she tells her friends about when she's crying over someone else. You are the one her body remembers when she is in pain. You are the one who haunts her when the chaos grows too loud. Not because you broke her, but because you didn't. In her mind, that makes you weak, or boring, or too soft. But what it really means is this: you are outside the dream. You are not part of the story she's been rehearsing since childhood. You are the door she could walk through, but only if she's willing to leave the script behind. And scripts, no matter how cruel, feel safer than the unknown. She may come back one day, changed, a little quieter, a little older, eyes softer. She may say, I didn't see you then. But she did, and she left anyway. Not because she hated you, but because the mirror you held up was too honest, too loving, too unfamiliar. And you will have to choose whether to hold up that mirror again, knowing she might still turn away. In the softest gestures of affection, there lies a hunger for destruction, disguised not by violence, but by its absence. She once told you she wanted peace. She meant it, but the moment you offered it, she began to suffocate. Not visibly, not dramatically, just slowly, subtly, like a hand pressing down over her ribs in the quiet of night. Because peace, to her, is not an invitation, it's a trap, a silence too pure to trust, a stillness too exposed to endure. The bed you made for her was soft, warm, tender, but it lacked the edge. And without that edge, she had no reason to stay awake, no reason to run, and nothing to prove. And so, the mind began to stir, the body began to itch. The fear came crawling back, not of you, but of what she might become without the chaos to define her. You noticed it in the way she touched you, delicately at first, but less often, as if the absence of danger made her forget she had a body at all. You whispered, and she smiled. You waited, and she nodded. But there was something missing in her gaze, a tension, a pull, a struggle. She didn't want to admit it, but you could feel it. She needed something to push against, and you gave her nothing to fight. Only love, only comfort, only a blank canvas where she expected blood. This is not the love story she rehearsed. In her fantasies, love was not gentle, it was turbulent, sharp, desperate. Someone pulling her by the wrist, kissing her too hard, leaving without explanation. Someone making her earn every ounce of affection. That, to her, felt like meaning, that felt like reality. What you gave her felt unreal, and so her mind rebelled. If he's not hurting me, she thought, then he must not want me. If he's not jealous, he must not care. If he's always available, maybe he's replaceable. These were not conscious thoughts. They were echoes. Echoes of a nervous system trained to equate distance with depth. She began to test you, quietly. She cancelled plans. She delayed replies. She flirted with the edge of withdrawal. Not because she wanted to lose you, but because she needed to see if you would react, if you would snap, if you would show even a flicker of that heat, the heat she had confused for passion in every man who left her bleeding. But you didn't. You stayed calm, you stayed kind, and that scared her more than rage ever could. Freud called it the death drive, the urge not to thrive, but to repeat destruction, not out of hatred for the self, but out of loyalty to the unconscious. The compulsion to return to the site of pain again and again, because that is where the body first learned it existed. You mistook her stillness for healing, but she was only holding her breath, waiting for the storm, waiting for the proof. And when it never came, she became the storm, not loudly, quietly. She began to disappear, thoughtfully, with reasons, with grace. But she disappeared. You asked yourself what you did wrong, and the answer is unbearable. You didn't do anything wrong. You were everything she said she wanted. You gave her space. You gave her warmth. You gave her no reason to run. And that is precisely why she did. Because somewhere deep inside her psyche, safety is synonymous with suffocation. If she's not hurting, she's not feeling. If she's not crying, she's not alive. If you don't make her bleed, then what is she supposed to clean? This is the paradox of desire. The body longs for what the mind denies. The mind demands peace while the flesh craves war. You held her as if she mattered, but she never learned to matter unless someone was willing to destroy her. You became the mirror that asked nothing of her, and that terrified her more than any cruelty ever could. Because in your eyes, she could no longer hide. She will tell herself stories, that you were too soft, that the spark faded, that you were too kind, too consistent, too available. But the truth is simpler. You gave her nothing to survive, and she does not know how to love without survival. She associates care with captivity. She was never taught to believe in love without fear. And so she returns to the man who says little and means even less. The one who vanishes mid-sentence. The one whose silence feels like home. You hear about it later, that she's back with him, that he said something cruel, and she stayed, that he left, and she chased, that he bruised her pride, and she called it fate. And you feel the sickness in your stomach, not because you miss her, but because you know she never even saw you. You were not rejected. You were invisible, not because you were unworthy, but because you refused to play the role she had carved out for you, the destroyer she could seduce into kindness. You were too whole, too sane, too unwilling to perform madness just to be loved. You wonder if this will change, if time will open her eyes, if she'll one day call you, trembling, and say, "I see it now. I'm ready." But by then, something in you will have hardened, not out of resentment, out of knowing. Knowing that love is not enough when the unconscious is at war with peace. Knowing that you cannot save someone who still worships their own ruin. Knowing that the bed you built with tenderness will always be too quiet for the ones who were raised in thunder. You still think about her, not as a person, but as a symbol. The moment you realize that desire is not always drawn to kindness, that sometimes the body wants what breaks it, that sometimes the safest arms are the loneliest place to be. You see her face in others, the look of confusion when you don't play the game, The restless energy when you don't punish, the withdrawal when you love too purely, and you know, now, it's not about you. It never was. You are just the man who refused to become the wound she was waiting for. And in that refusal, you lost her. There is no moral to this, no lesson, only the slow, bitter taste of recognition that what we crave is not always what we need, that sometimes the greatest violence is peace, that to a heart built from screams, silence feels like abandonment, and no matter how open your hands are, she will not take them, not until she learns to see love without pain. And by then, perhaps, you will have already learned to stop offering it, because kindness, too, has a death, and it dies not in rage, but in quiet understanding. That she never wanted you, she wanted the wound, and you wouldn't be it. She lies awake beside someone else now, his hand heavy on her hip, his breathing uneven. In the stillness, she remembers your eyes not because they hurt her, but because they didn't, and for a moment, just one. She wonders what it would have felt like to stay in the bed that never asked her to bleed. But she doesn't turn back, and you don't wait, because the wound has no use for the one who won't reopen it.